Hi, everybody, and welcome to the July meeting of the Bike Walk Commission. I'm Tanner Thompson, I'm the chair. It looks like we also have in attendance Commissioners Judd Ailey, Nick Pappas, and Emily. I want to give a special shout out to Nick. This is his first meeting as a proper commissioner. He was appointed and confirmed by the Common Council just a few weeks ago, since our last meeting. As per usual, I'm going to open it up to public comment, and I'll give priority to people who haven't been here before, but I think that everybody here, that I can see at least, has been here before. So anybody who wants to give comment is welcome.
It's more of a question than a comment in regards to the NRVT and the new section along the Riverside Avenue. And why was the center line ground down and black topped over? Just a question.
That's a great question. I'd love to know the answer to that as well. Greg, do you want to take that right now?
That I don't have the answer to, but I will be happy to find out for you guys and let you know.
Okay. Is there somebody at TMP that is like the point person for that project that isn't you?
I'll just find out. I'll find out and I'll get back to you guys. We're kind of, it's just kind of rotating right now. So there's a lot going on with BT right now. So I'll find out and let you know.
Okay.
So the question was the center line on the actual path itself.
Yeah, when it was first paved, there was a yellow center line painted, if I remember right, and then later, just not that much later, it was ground out and now it's black again. But it was like painted over with some sort of black paint.
And this was the new section.
Yeah.
Where about specifically, just so I know specifically where.
I think who asked the question?
Paul did. Paul, do you know exactly where it started and ended?
Yeah, so along Riverside Ave. So basically a portion that goes along, I don't know if that's a creek and the, I guess it's the Stone or retailer that's along there. So right
Yeah,
from when you
Casatelli
come
Marble.
under, yeah. So right along that stretch right there.
Okay.
It was,
it-
center line was ground down and sealed over.
It was also ground down all the way to Belden. They only left it as I think for safety reasons, as you go under the bridge so you stay to one side. But all the way to Belden, it's gone too.
Oh, I remember seeing it ground out under the bridge as well.
It's under the bridge. It's not there. As you approach where it can be kind of dangerous if you can't see people coming. They did leave it there.
Interesting.
Yeah. On the curve, it is there. So I do feel a little bit safe about that one.
Yeah, I'd love to know, Greg, as well, what happened there. I think it seems like we're all in agreement that the yellow line was a good thing. I think it was a good thing.
I think so.
All right,
So-
well, let me find out what the direct answer because I wasn't involved with that. So let me I'll get an answer and I'll email you guys once I find out.
Great. Paul, your hands up.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for whoever was was a part of getting the no turns on red signage near Dogtopia on the NRVT. Thank you.
Well, that was Greg and other people at TMP, but Greg was the point person, and that's one of the
Thank
first
you.
things on the agenda. So
Yes.
Um,
And a big thank you has to go out to the roadway maintenance crew because they were the ones that actually went up in the bucket truck in the middle of traffic in the middle of the day with a lot of cars driving by and actually put up the sign. So the credit has to go to them to actually putting up the sign.
I know it's an agenda item, but I also want to second that. I rode to work a couple times last week and I had zero stress. It was amazing.
that's what we love to hear.
I
Low
loved
stress bike routes. All right. Any other public comments or introductions? I still don't see any new people. So comment from anybody is welcome, but this is your chance. All right, then we'll move on to the agenda. Just a quick overview of the agenda. I'll share my screen so that we can all see what the agenda is in case you don't have it pulled up on your end. So we've got, oops. I've got one announcement. It shouldn't take 10 minutes by any stretch. TMP's got several updates, and then we have several items of new business. I think that we will probably need more than 30 minutes for the new business. Greg, do you think you'll need 30 minutes for the TMP updates here? I guess if we include question and answer.
It should be quick, but again, it's contingent upon questions.
Yeah, okay. Well, then let's shoot to be, maybe try and be done with the TMP project updates by 40 after. That gives 30 minutes for those plus the announcements, which should take only a few minutes. And then I think that should give us enough time for the rest of the new business. Alrighty, so the one announcement is the NTD COA kickoff. If you don't know what those letters stand for, the NTD is the Norwalk Transit District, and COA is their Comprehensive Operational Analysis. Sorry. That is a project that they've been looking forward to for a while, where they're going to reassess every aspect of their operations, so every line of service that they run, and potentially that this process could end up with a whole different bus network, a whole different set of routes. Paul actually might know more about it than I do, but I've been asked to be, and I think Paul, you were as well, and Ben and Peter, who's in attendance, was also. All three of them were asked to be on the steering committee for this this whole process, and it's gonna be a long process. I think it takes over a year. Paul, do you want to say anything else about it?
Yeah, sure. So it's a comprehensive operating analysis. It looks at, like Tanner said, every route. It looks at demographics of the city and where Norwalk Transit District serves bus-wise. And then it also looks at operating efficiencies, like, schedule changes and stuff like that. And seeing if the whole of the transit system is where it needs to be going. Is it operating the most, effective in a cost perspective way, as well as providing the most amount of service for that cost. And it also looks at other amenities. For example, like would be pointing to this committee, like, walking enhancements, bike enhancements, the first mile, last mile type of connection kind of thing.
I was muted. Thanks, Paul. Greg, do you want to add anything about TMP and their involvement? Are you familiar much with the plans here?
So we do have Kyle Benjamin's going to kind of be being part of this, and
great.
we're obviously going to be a part of it throughout the entirety of the process. So a lot obviously hinges, in coordination with what we're doing with Complete Streets and our master plan. So we're very excited to see what comes out of it and how the bus improvements from a route perspective can improve ridership and ways from an infrastructure level, how the coordination between the city and the transit district can continue to to be in good standing and continue to get better and only improve ridership.
Great. I'm glad to hear it. And in particular, I'm glad to see that Kyle's participating because I understand that he has a little bit of experience in transit planning from previous employment. So that's great. I also want to mention, I'm going to bring up the COA again later under the bike share item. As some of you may know, in other cities, there have been, like around the United States, there's been success, and even in other countries, in integrating bike share systems with transit systems because they kind of serve a similar use case. In a sense, bike share systems are public transportation. So I'm going to come back to that when we get to the bike share issue. So with that said, I'm going to kick it over to Greg for all these different TMP project updates. Go ahead, Greg.
All right, so we already touched on one briefly. That's the the Belden Ave crossing Route 1 for the NRVT. We sent an email out a few weeks ago. We put up the no turn on red signs. For the dual off ramps from Route 7, as well as the right turn from Belden Avenue onto the Route 7 northbound on ramp. Just in the short term, just to give trail users some, extended time to cross without vehicles turning on red. So that's in the short term. We'll look to address the intersection as part of a larger project. Since it is on a state-controlled roadway, we'll need to provide DOT with a little more completed study of the signals and the intersections. That's the intersections Route 7 at Belden, as well as Cross Street and Belden Avenue as well. So those two intersections kind of work in unison with one another. So we're going to have to look at both intersections together and just kind of see how we can improve any of the signal timings and any increased ped control crossings as well. And we'll have to give that completed study and show that to DOT with any signal or infrastructure changes. So basically DOT needs to sign off on any changes to the roadway, and that includes adjusting any of the signal timings, seeing how, it's on their road, and especially since it's coming off Route 7 as well. So for that portion, we've already begun putting together a mini RFP. So it's a request for proposals to release to the city's on-call engineering consultants to perform the study at these intersections. The outcome will provide us with solutions to, make the crossing safer for all trail users. And we'll be able to provide DOT with the necessary justification for any signal and infrastructure upgrades, from a high level pedestrian refuge island, with, crossing signals, pedestrian crossing signals in the pedestrian island. So we have to look at it from a high level and see what we can incorporate. But the first thing is just to look at all the data that comes out of the study. Any questions?
Just my question that I've asked you a couple of times, which is, do we have any sort of timeline indication? Do you know when the RFP will be released, like, even at a high level?
We're working to put the RFP out some point this summer. It's just everyone's really busy right now, especially even the engineering consultants are very busy right now. They have a lot of work that they've already begun for the summertime. So, it's a lot of work for us to put together as far as the scope and, kind of what we're expecting to look at, because we have to make the RFP very descriptive of what we want out of it. And then also the engineering consultants right now, they have to analyze it and, divvy up their staff and their time as well to make sure they can do it. So, and we have to still go through a, procurement process as well for the low bidder and analyze the bid. So it's not just an automatic, oh, we're good, here we go. So it takes some time, but the ball's rolling. So we'll keep you posted as we continue to get this going. But it's been a couple months. We made a good amount of stride within a couple months. So
Totally. And to be clear, I don't keep bringing this up because I want to put additional undue pressure on you guys, but just bring it up more so that everyone else, the public, the commission, has a sense of the realistic timeline they should expect. Right? I'm just trying to manage expectations.
Yeah. So I mean, by the time we put it out this summer, then it's another 2 to 3 weeks for the bid to to solicit the bid and the questions from the consultants. And then it's we have to analyze the bids that we got, look through all the contracts, the money, and then start the design process and the study process. So it's going to be, we'll keep you posted along the way, but I don't want to, I'll just say we'll put the mini RFP out at some point this summer and then go from there.
Great, thanks. Anything else to report on that intersection? I think that was all that you included in the email.
Yep, no, that was it.
Great. Any questions, or should we move on?
All right, so for the Wall Street Corridor project, so really good news, exciting news, the East Wall Street Landmark Square Safety Project, the Accessibility and Streetscape Improvement Project, I should say, which is the portion from Main Street to Brook Street of the project, is actually going out to bid solicitation within the next couple weeks. So that bid will have is the construction documents to be starting construction later this year and into next year.
So just for context, Greg, this is the project that has been presented to us like a year or two ago that involves,
Correct.
for example, expanding the sidewalk in front of 10 Wall Street where the Peruvian restaurant is. It's that project.
Yep, so it's from Main Street to Brook Street. So that
Here,
portion.
I'll pull up the map for everybody.
In between Wall Street and where it meets East Wall at Brook Street. So yes, there was already a design, a lot SIP grant that was given. The consultant reworked some of the designs that kind of fit in with the overall Wall Street Corridor project. So it's a small section and it's kind of phase one of the overall Wall Street project. And we received the authorization to advertise, and it's been endorsed by Westcog. And, like I said, it matched with the larger plan of the area. And we were able to get, in the previous plan, there were no bike lanes in this area. So we were able to modify the design plans to fit bike lanes and still have the pedestrian crossings and the wider sidewalks and just a better delineation of traffic as well. And we incorporated comments from the Wall Street public meeting as well, from the 2 public meetings that were held. Yes, Judge.
Yep. Any chance you could show us that plan? That's the final
I
bid
don't,
plan?
I don't have the plan right now, plus with it going out to bid, soon, I don't have that, I don't have those plans on me right now.
Okay.
They
Uh,
have been shared in previous versions, or
Yeah.
a previous version of the plan was shared in this meeting, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a previous, the previous plan, but it's very similar, it's just more, we're adding bike lanes, as well, and just a few different curb extensions, just to rework to keep them involved in it. Because that's the overall goal of the corridor as well.
Where do the bike lanes run roughly?
So they'll run from Main Street up to East Wall Street, I should say.
Up the hill?
Yeah, so we'll connect to the existing one, and then we'll look to incorporate on the west approach from East Wall Street. We'll incorporate a bike lane there as well through through another portion of the project.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But at least in that section between Brook Street and Main Street, you'll have bike lanes, bi-directional bike lanes in both directions.
So Greg, the project area though, the eastern extent of the project area is Brook Street, is that right?
Brook Street, correct, yeah.
So the section of East Wall Street between Brook Street and like the green, that's outside the scope of the project
For this phase, correct.
for this phase. Gotcha. But you
For this
mentioned that
phase, yeah.
that there's an intent to make sure that there are bike lanes in both directions on that section of East Wall Street.
Both directions, yes, because you
In-
have the
in a future
you have the existing one going up East Wall Street towards East Avenue. But as you come from East Avenue, currently there isn't one, but
Yes.
we'll look to address that in the coming future for other phases of the project.
That's great news. I'm glad to hear it. To help understand just a little better, do you mean that would be a future phase of like the greater Wall Street corridor project, or would this be a different initiative?
We'd look to see how we can incorporate it maybe in the short term. If not, we would address it through the Wall Street corridor project as a whole. That's still coming together right now. We're not even at a 30% design for the rest of the Wall Street project, for the rest of it. So we're still, kind of putting that together and seeing how it fits that area. But, this portion of the lot, it's a lot SIP project, so it's been on the books for a while. And like I said, it's been it's been endorsed by the WestCog and approved by DOT. So we've satisfied all the, the approvals through the grant process. So we're just, we're putting it out to bid. It's, contingent upon review of the bidders and council review and law department review, but we're looking to begin construction later this year and into next year.
Cool, that's great news. Do you have any news on you mentioned that the greater Wall Street project, the Wall Street corridor project, is not yet at the 30% design. Can you go into that a little more?
Correct. So on an overall basis, so we've gotten, from a cost estimate perspective, we've kind of estimated the consultant, between us and the consultant estimated it's probably for the entirety of the corridor, it's about a $27 million project for design and for construction. So right now we've secured about $21 million for the entirety of the corridor. And we're writing grants. We've already kind of keyed in on grants in the future to fulfill that gap between what we need for design and for construction. So what we're looking at doing next for the greater Wall Street is, we're doing the entirety of it all at once. We've already given that authorization to the consultant, and it's been approved by Economic Development Committee as well. To do the rest of Burnell, Main Street, Wall Street, West Avenue, and Belden Avenue, and get those plans to 30% design. The public meeting that we held, was it about last November? That was, very high level concept that we began putting together. We received a lot of comments, public feedback. So, the next thing we'll put it all together into a 30% design. And then from there, we'll probably look to have another public meeting sometime this fall or into the winter. So we'll keep everybody, updated on when we're scheduling that, and, we'll have a concept plan for everybody to, to unveil to everybody and receive another round of comments as well. So we are moving forward with, kind of progressing those concept plans for the rest of the corridor to the next step.
Gotcha. So the work that's been done so far was the high level study. It was high level feedback from the community. What's the significance of 30%? Like, why that magic number? Is that qualifies
So
for some sort of
usually
grant?
So usually when you have a concept, a 30% is kind of like your concept plan. That just kind of shows,
Okay,
kind of the, and a very, what we unveiled last year was even, it wasn't really 30%. It was very high level lines just to show how it could look. A concept plan will kind of define dimensions and how the street potentially could look. Obviously, we'll do more comments and that could change before final
so
design.
like as an example, the design that you've released for Seaview Avenue, that concept, is that a 30% design?
That is not 30%, no.
That's not. Okay,
That's not, no, that's a little below 30% because we're still taking rounds of comments about Seaview Avenue as well. So we haven't definitively said this is our concept design. We need to move to the next stages, because then when you get to next stage, then you have to look at final design plans. You look at more drainage plans, sloping, you get more into the finer details of the project.
gotcha.
So
Okay,
that's,
so what I'm
no, I'm saying-
understanding. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Greg,
go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
What I'm understanding is that one of the next steps is to secure the next $6 million to bridge the gap between the 21 you have and the 27 that you need.
Yep.
And then in parallel, are you going to be working in-house on getting to that 30% design, or is that a project that you're going to put out to bid, or that the existing consultants are going to be
We
working on?
we already have a design consultant, Fuss and O'Neill, who's been
Okay, so they're going to do it.
the designer, so they've been on board already doing all the design work, which is a very engineering intensive and planning intensive project to work on. It's,
Of course.
that's so they've been taking lead on that for almost a year and a half now. So they're going to continue working on that and kind of, continuing those designs to 30% for the rest of Wall Street.
And when do you anticipate, like, what's the rough timeline on that? Again, not to put undue pressure, but just to manage expectations. Like, when do you think
Well, I
that
mean,
will
so-
happen?
They're looking to have the concept plans by the fall and then unveil them through a public meeting at some point. So then they'll do another round of comments and so expect to have a public meeting sometime in the fall or early
Got it.
winter.
Okay, cool. Judd, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, my question, just if you had to take a guess, from when this goes out to bid for the Wall Street corridor, maybe 2 more years?
So you're talking about the entirety of Wall Street?
Well, from Maine to Belden, West Ave. I'm leaving East Wall out.
I can't give a timeline on that because we're not even at a concept plan yet. So I don't want to give a timeline on that. That's just going to get me in trouble.
I mean,
Oh,
okay.
that'll depend on things like how fast the grant funding comes through and
Yeah,
how well
and
the
then
plan's
also-
received and stuff like that, right?
It may also be done in phases as well. Just because we design doesn't mean we'll build all at once. It may be, do Belden Avenue at Wall Street to Main and do that section. And then the next phase may be Main Street from Wall Street to, to Burnell Boulevard. So it may be done in phases. It probably won't be bid all at once.
Right.
But I want to give a timeline before we even have a 30% concept for the rest of it.
So somewhere in the past year or so, I saw something that spelled out the order of how it might be built out. And if I remember correctly, the first thing was a roundabout at Burnell and Maine, and then after that, make Burnell 2-way, and then maybe it was Wall after that. Do you have any?
That I would have to double check because I'm pretty sure we that the roundabout was one of the last phases of the project.
Okay,
So I like I said, we're not even at concept design. So, the roundabout Main Street to, to Burnell Boulevard was one of the last stages of the project. So, but again, things could change, between utility projects and, sewer, underground utility issues. So that could all change. I just don't want to go too far ahead before a concept design is
Sure.
even presented.
maybe it was on this webpage that I saw that. I'm not sure, so.
Yeah, I'm trying to, what you're referring to, Jed, I have never seen before. That's news to me, and I'm wondering if I could find it here. Greg, do you know if like the high level
Yeah, I mean,
procedure?
I've seen a lot of maps, so I think I know what you're talking about. But you know, it's been a while since you know, anything else has come out. So we've just been kind of, you know, trying to get this lot zip portion between Main Street and Brook Street, get those designs finalized from DOT, get the bid package together. That's been our main goal this, you know, spring and summer, was to get that bid package finalized and get out to bid, which is coming in the next week or two.
Right.
So, and then, you know, obviously then the consultant will kind of take on the design portion moving forward. So we're just looking then the next, you know, fall, early winter, we'll have a public meeting and kind of unveil that concept plan.
Gotcha. And I want to make sure that we leave time for the rest of the project updates, but any questions, especially from the other commissioners about Wall Street progress? Alrighty, then moving on to CVUF.
All right, CVUF. All right, so we wrapped up the public comment period from the concept plan that was unveiled on CVU Avenue. We had the public meeting on May 22nd, and we also had an open public comment period till July 1st, which just ended. So next steps, the project team will shortly begin analyzing and reviewing those public comments from the meeting, and also during the public comment that were emailed in. So we'll continue to review that with our consultant. Just keep in mind, again, this was a concept plan, and you know, the concept plan may or may not be changed based on the public comments. So we got to, you know, filter through and, you know, analyze all from all different perspectives, and you know, put the best concept forward. Also, there's, you know, like Wall Street has a lot of money behind it. CVU Avenue, there's no money to construct this project as of yet. So we're going to have to go out for a grant or something for construction to build this. So we're just going to continue with, you know, throughout the, you know, design phase, we're just going to continue, you know, putting the best concept plan together based on the public comments we received. And, you know, we're going to continue to have more public comment and meetings and public comment periods as, you know, the plan kind of continues to come together. And even once we receive money for a grant, usually there is a, you know, a public, you know, input session as part of the grant as well. So, you know, one thing that will help us get the grant was we already had, you know, a stakeholder meeting and 2 public information meetings as well, where we took public comment, and that we have a, you know, a concept plan as well. So at least that satisfies that we've already got the project in motion, and, you know, we're not starting from scratch. So that will certainly help us, you know, with the development of the concept plan. So, you know, we'll keep the commission obviously, you know, involved as, you know, and the community involved as we, you know, filter through all the comments and, you know, apply all the comments and analyze everything, and we'll keep everybody posted, you know, if we do have when we do have another public meeting. Any questions? No? Good.
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, it sounds like we're just kind of waiting on the next, kind of waiting on you guys to chew through all of that feedback, and then come.
Yeah, it's
back
kind
with
of
the next iteration.
yeah, we're kind of neutral right now on the project, just so we can look at all the comments, because we did receive a good amount of email comments as well, which, you know, we wanted to hear for people that weren't able to come to the meeting. So, you know, obviously
it
we
takes
have
time to get through all those.
Yeah, it takes time to get through, and, you know, now that we have a drawing on paper, we can, you know, go through it, you know, look at it a little more detailed than, you know, before, where we didn't have anything on paper. So,
Sure.
we'll definitely go through everything and, you know, keep everybody posted.
All right. Do you want to move on to the next one, the community connectivity grant project submittal?
Yes.
This is not the old community connectivity grant that
No.
implied the east, west, north, south bike routes. This is the next iteration.
Yes, so this is a new, so DOT usually, they solicit funding for, community connectivity, every so often, and, another round is coming up, later this month. So we've been working on putting a grant, submittal, for a project application for a streetscape project at the intersection of Stewart at Stevens in the Hospital Hill area of Norwalk. So let me share my screen here.
While Greg brings that up, I'll explain quick. The other day, I happened to run into Greg and Nathan at this intersection.
That was Troy.
Oh, that was Troy. Excuse me. Nathan's the other new guy, right?
Yes, Nathan's, yep, he's the junior engineer.
That's right. Troy's a project manager.
Yeah, Troy's proud, yep.
Yeah. So Greg and Troy were out at this intersection, and I happened to be picking up breakfast at Blue Cactus, which is perhaps the most notorious landmark at this intersection.
So yeah, so as everybody can see, this is obviously a not ideal intersection. You got a 5-way intersection, I guess you want to call it a roundabout, but there's a sea of asphalt, no definitive parking. You have angle parking at the frontage of the businesses. You do have a good amount of businesses at the front, and you do have a mixed use. You have apartments at the top, and then further restaurants and other businesses right next door as well. And this intersection was mentioned in the recent version of the transportation master plan. The plan called for improving the current 5-legged intersection and exploring opportunities for creative, for kind of creating a, public space improvements as well. So we worked on putting together a concept plan. It's a streetscape project to kind of incorporate some traffic calming measures. And so let me stop this share, and then I will share the actual concept, which would be much easier.
Oh, you've got a concept.
I do, yes.
Let's go.
This is so before I share, this is a draft concept. It's not finalized. This, we may, we're applying for the grant later this month, so we may make some tweaks. But this is a draft concept, but this is overall what we are looking to incorporate here as part of it. And, with the community connectivity, it's only worth so much money. Top is $800,000 for the community connectivity grant. So it's not in the millions of dollars. So we have to be cognizant of how much, money that we apply for. So we look to incorporating traffic calming measures, preformed thermoplastic crosswalks, where today there is not one single crosswalk in this area. We added 5 crosswalks. And just teeing up the 2 intersections between Magnolia and Stevens Street, and also Stevens at Stewart as well. We also look to incorporate RFBs for the crossings, larger sidewalk plaza at the frontage of the mixed-use building, provides pedestrian level lighting, street trees, and an amenity area as well. And also defined parking lot for the businesses as well for their customers, because there's a lot of, there's convenience stores, a liquor store. Obviously, you have the Blue Cactus there as well. So there is a lot of foot traffic, in and out foot traffic that comes through here. We're also building upon the $220 million renovations that Norwalk Hospital is also putting into their facilities, and they're going to be building upon on Stevens Street and Maple Street as well. So we're just kind of building upon a lot of their improvements in their streetscape as well, and just kind of continuing that up Stevens Street to continue to Stewart Avenue, because it is such very close proximity to the hospital. So it's vital to have better accessibility and connectivity to this area. And right now there isn't any, and there's just a sea of asphalt right now. So we're just trying to normalize it and make it more pedestrian friendly, and also just incorporate more traffic calming measures as well at this intersection, where right now there just isn't, and it's just wide open asphalt. So what we're presenting this to you tonight is because we wanted to ask the commission to write a letter of support that we could submit with the grant application for this project. As you know, we're asking other entities as well to supply a letter of support. We've gotten a letter of support from Westcog, and then we'll look from others as well for a letter of support. So wanted to put it out there for you all to discuss.
I was muted, my bad. My computer crashed on me. You can all hear me, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. I think I'm gonna be back here in a sec. I'll let other commissioners go first. Anybody have questions?
Greg, in its current configuration, is there a excessive number of accidents there?
There is, yes, there is. So right now, so since January 1st of 2015 to
Okay.
August 31st, 2022, there were 26 crashes
Wow.
in this general area, including 3 pedestrian crashes.
You mean pedestrians hit by vehicles?
Yes. Pedestrians hit, yes, by vehicles. Yep.
And what was that time period?
That was from January 1st, 2015 to August 8th, 2022.
Okay.
And they all happen right in the general area around the center islands here.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of nobody knows what to do when they get there.
Exactly. And this is also a transit route as well for the Newark Transit District. There's a bus that comes west on Stevens and up Stewart, and also south on Stewart and turns on to Stevens Street that serves the hospital. So it is also a transit corridor as well. You know, and again, this is just it's a draft concept, that we're still working with, but this is what our ultimate vision is for the intersection here.
And when do you think you'd need that letter of support?
So the application is due on Friday, July 21st. So ideally, we'd like to have it by middle of next week at the latest.
Okay.
So I know it's a little short, but there's still a good amount of time. So.
I'm just about in any other, but we have somebody in the Q&A. I can't get to Q&A on my phone. Greg, can you pull up the Q&A and see what that is?
Sure. Let's see here. Why does it need to be parking lot there? Can parking be turned into a parcel for mixed use? So good question. So there is no parking lot for the businesses. The lot that's behind is actually for residents of that mixed use building that live above. We've been working with the businesses, and we're trying to keep, parking for the businesses, because, we take away that parking, then all there is, the handful of parking spaces on the street in the frontage of their business. We have to try to keep as many parking spaces as we can for the businesses. But we're providing, we are providing some more green space. You see all the green colors here, that's all green space with street trees, bioswales. So we are trying to incorporate more green space, but we have to keep in mind, we need to provide parking for the businesses for them to survive.
Is the parking being held flat, or is it being increased?
So right now, we would basically reallocate. We have the angled spaces, at the frontage of the building where there's 6 spaces right now. So we would pretty much just would reallocate the 3 spaces across the street to the parking lot. So it would be pretty much, within that, net zero, or, maybe +2 spaces, especially we're incorporating a handicap space as well. But again, this is a high level, draft concept plan. So things could, still change as we continue to work on this. So we're just trying to get the most out of this as we can, and, provide as much parking and more green space, and, more pedestrian crossings, and, trying to, get rid of some of the asphalt in this area.
So, Greg, I think at a high level, just speaking personally, I support elements of this, and I certainly support at a high level just making improvements to this intersection because it does suck. How much, what part of this in particular do you want us to support at this stage? Because for example, personally, I think Ben's question about the parking is valid. And also, while there is some green space in this project, I don't know that it's that much more than what's there. It still does strike me as a lot of asphalt, but I don't want to kill it, right? Like I want to keep working with you guys on this. So my question is, at this point, what specifically do you want us to write in support of?
Well, here, let me stop this share. So take a mental image of that and bring up.
Oh, I mean, I've got it pulled up on my other monitor.
Okay.
But yes,
all right, well, this
for
is
everybody else's
everybody.
sake.
So you see the difference now. Where's the safe place to cross the street now?
I mean, I completely agree with your point. Like the crosswalks are perhaps the best feature of the plan that you've just brought up. My point is that I don't think that today needs to be a feedback session.
No, it's not.
Because
Yeah,
there will be feedback sessions later.
Right.
I'm wondering if people on the commission have mixed feelings about the concept and want to give feedback, but it's not the right time to give feedback. At a high level, can we still provide support for, say, we do want to see this intersection reconfigured. We do want to see safer crossings, et cetera. Is that sort of high level feedback? Is that helpful?
yeah, that's high level. I mean, it provides safer, pedestrian accessibility, not only to the retail stores and restaurants here, but also to the hospital as well.
Yeah.
Very vital area, and also Route 1 is very close by as well to the south here. So there's also a lot of condos and multifamily houses, high residential area, so improving walkability throughout the corridor. There's the hospital not even a quarter mile away, which employs
If I'm
a
not
lot
mistaken, under the new zoning regs that have been proposed, that this area would be slated for, I think, even more density in parts than it has now. So in other words, there would be even more people in the walkshed of this little commercial district, this this one building, than
exactly.
or I guess
And I don't know how many people have seen, but Norwalk Hospital's putting $220 million worth of improvements along here. So all of Stevens Street from Woodbury East to Maple Street is all getting updated streetscape, wider sidewalks.
Oh, really?
So yeah, we're building upon what the hospital is doing, and just continuing it west all the way to Stewart.
That's news to me. What's the timeline on that project?
I'm not sure when they're starting, but that's already been approved by, Planning and Zoning Commission. It's been in the works for, probably a year and a half now.
Cool.
During the site plan review process, we've asked them to incorporate a lot of those streetscape projects and improving the intersections and, because they're, like I said, putting in $220 million worth of improvements into their facilities.
Gotcha. I'm gonna turn it to Paul. Paul's got his hand up.
Yeah, I have more of a question and a statement. So the question is, are the businesses already struggling due to the lack of parking as it is currently?
They definitely want to see more parking, just because, right now there's only so many spaces at the frontage of their property. And then over here to the north, there's, that's not only for businesses right now, there's also residents that park here as well. So, they want more parking because in the back here, that's all for residents. So they don't have a lot of areas for their customers to park. And there's a good amount of businesses right here. And we've actually spoken to the businesses as well, and they've asked for that, and that's what they want to see.
Yeah, I guess, I'm thinking this is kind of like really a nothing burger because they seem to be surviving with the parking they have now. But, that's a different topic. But, I think I see what you're trying to do, but I think there might be a better compromise. While I would have liked to see a better, more upgraded, more beautified roundabout in that area, which I think could have been really aesthetically pleasing. What I would say would be the compromise if I was going to do this is maybe take that lower half of the parking and turn it more into a sitting park right there at the tip of that triangle, and then that would be kind of the compromise. That's my thought. Thank you.
All right, well, again, I don't want to, this is just more, for asking for, support from the commission. I get everybody has their opinions and we understand that. But again, this is only worth, this isn't a $2 million grant here. So we have to keep in mind, what we're asking for. If we ask for something that's worth $3 million, then, the grant's not even come close to covering it.
Judd's got his hand up. Go ahead, Judd.
Yeah, I just want to add, with the plan that you showed us, Greg, along with the parking, the big improvement I see is pedestrian safety with the crosswalks and the streets being more defined. The way it is right now, if you park at the north end of this plaza, I'll call it, and you're walking across all that open asphalt as a pedestrian, which most people would do, they would take the most direct route. It's potentially very dangerous. And, the plan Greg showed us, I think, just tightens things up and defines where people can walk. And I think it would really be a boost for the area. So maybe there's our letter of support there.
Thanks, Judd. Another question for you, Greg. How much, I mean, you said that this design is very preliminary, and actually, would you mind switching back to it?
Yeah, sure.
How preliminary are we talking? Like, is this just like a starting point and then there will be like, a proper design process that comes later? Or is this like kind of the bones and then we'll just kind of be changing little bits around the edges?
Like everything else, I mean, we have to, this will go into a final design stage and, and we'll have to meet the requirements of the grant. But I mean, this is kind of just the overall, what we're trying to incorporate: more green space, better pedestrian crossings, trying to, work with we're working with the businesses to try to, keep as many parking spaces as possible, because that's, an ask that they had. And also having an area for them to get their deliveries. You have liquor store here, convenience store, restaurant. They're getting deliveries. Tanner, when we saw you on the street that day, they had 2 large trucks getting deliveries when we left.
Yeah. So what can you point out what? Oh, I see the loading zone up on Magnolia Ave.
Yeah. So I mean, they were getting there, or they were getting them in the back as well, in the back parking lot where the residents park.
Mhm.
So that's also another thing we have to keep in mind. When we put this together.
Personally, I completely agree with the need for a loading zone. I think we ought to have more loading zones. For example, Washington Streets, in my opinion, has a huge need for a loading zone. It seems though that in this concept, the loading zone is pretty far from the businesses. So like that might be something that could be tweaked.
And that would also be for larger trucks that can't fit in the parking lot in the back. So again, we're still working to, make some modifications to the concept, because we have to include this into our grant submittal alongside with a cost estimate as well. Because if this is anywhere over $1 million, it's going to be hard for us to apply for.
Yeah, totally understand that you're working under cost constraints. I'm just trying to get a sense of like what's negotiable and what's not. But let's move on to talking about the actual letter. Judd, you've mentioned that you wanted to make the point in the letter that we appreciate the pedestrian safety improvements. I completely agree with that. Anybody else have a particular point that they would want to make into the letter? I imagine that we're gonna just assign the letter to one of us and then have it written by mid next week, like Greg asked for. Or did you say mid next week or mid this week?
Mid next week. So if we could have it by
Yeah,
like Wednesday, that would be terrific.
Yeah, Peter's got his hand up. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Tanner. Real quick, because I do frequently go to Blue Cactus myself, so I understand this is a excellent intersection to improve. It's a hot mess for sure. My question is on Stewart, where the crosswalks are. I don't see painted stop lines there. Is that planned to be stop sign added to that area?
So on a high level, we would probably look, right now we would put RFPs up, so it'd be more of a mid-block crossing. Depending, we would look at obviously the sight lines. It would be a mid-block crossing, and we would design it just as that with RFB PED signals.
Because, okay, I would probably like ask, so those incidents when cars were hitting pedestrians, where were they coming from? And, are we just,
So we have actually the crashes right here. A lot of them occurred around there were two that occurred. So let me go. So one occurred up here. Another one occurred over here where it seemed like somebody was backing out, around the island. There's just an island, and another one occurred over here. And
All right.
that's from the Connecticut DOT repository.
right.
And the Norwalk Police Department as well.
All right, thanks for the answer.
Paul, your hand's been up for a while. Did you have another comment or did you mean to put it down? And I guess same question goes for Judd.
No, that was not me. Or maybe it wasn't, I'm sorry.
I have another question
Go, Judd.
for Greg. From my uneducated view of this, where you have the RFBs, it seems like a logical place to put stop signs. Why would you pick the rapid flashing beacons over stop signs?
Well, I mean, again, we're just looking, at a high level on this. We haven't, once we get more into the, final, more definitive design, that's where we'll look at, do we need stop control here, at one side or the other side? So, we have to look a little bit more in depth on, the actual numbers. Like we do have our counts in this area, but I mean, right now there is no protection, there's no crosswalks, and that's why we'd also look to put more pedestrian level lighting. We would put the thermoplastic as well, crosswalk as well, which is provides much more illumination and traffic control as well. We would add the curb extensions. So, right now the 85th percentile speed. Let me just see one sec here.
Is the 85th percentile speed, should it actually be relevant? I think we should have a speed that's safe for pedestrians.
I understand that, but that's, we still use the 85th percentile speed, it's still in the MUTCD. That's what a lot of, decisions are still based on. So, again, this is still high level. Things could change. It's a draft concept. So we're just looking to see if you guys can, provide us with a letter of support, on this for right now. Those smaller details will continue to evolve, but this is just for the grant, to secure funding for the grant.
Sure. Yeah, I think we should move on to deciding what we want to say in the letter and assigning that and then moving on. Obviously, we could provide feedback on this for a while.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't like, this is it. There's no other opportunity. Like, as we get into more final design, there will be more opportunities for public comment to be put in.
Sure.
Yeah, but this is part of the overall outline. This is what we're looking at for the project.
So my question from earlier still stands. Are there any elements that any commissioners want to see included in this letter besides the appreciation for the pedestrian safety through the crosswalks?
I mean, you could put in the letter that it adds, Greg, you'd have to tell us the final number, but X number of parking spaces, a typical parking space in a urban environment like that is worth anywhere from $100,000 to $250,000 worth of retail restaurant business a year. So that can help the economics of the area. I don't know if that's important to put in there, Greg, or.
No, I mean, it absolutely is. I mean, the businesses, and we've heard from them, they need the parking. They've asked us to keep, the parking because they have a lot of in and out business, and without it, they're gonna have trouble surviving.
Yep.
You know,
So respectfully
very
though,
low-
I would push
Yeah.
back on that as a value, because there are costs associated with this. First of all, there's published research that shows the business owners overestimate the fraction of people who drive to their stores and underestimate the fraction of people who walk and bike to their stores. So if
I
business
get it.
owners tell me, I want more parking, I take that with a grain of salt because I don't expect them to say anything else. I've never met a business owner that didn't say that.
I get it.
With the new upzoning that is likely to happen in this area, there will be even more people who will provide a customer base that can walk and bike to these stores. And then with more parking spots, even if it does provide more business, it also provides provides an incentive for more car traffic to come to this area, which obviously leads to higher pollution, all the other things that we're familiar with. So I don't think that, I mean, I would push back on including more parking as a good thing, as or at least as an unequivocal good thing in the letter. But I mean, that's just my take.
Yeah, I mean, we've also incorporated a lot of traffic calming features in here as well with the curb extensions,
Yes.
10-foot travel lanes, the thermoplastic crosswalks which have been known for better illumination to provide safer pedestrian access and slow traffic speeds as well, because of the different surfaces between pavement and the crossing surface. So, and
And there-
street, which
I
is-
would like to mention that. I appreciate you mentioning that, Greg.
keep
I'll make sure
keep
that gets
all in
mentioned.
mind as well.
Nick and
And-
Emily, we've got 4 commissioners here, right? Do we have a 5th? Do we have Christine or Colin today? We don't.
No.
Nick and Emily, I'd love to hear from you.
I mean, I don't really have any comment here. I'm excited to see progress, but yeah.
Okay, Nick?
I think at a high level, it would be good for the Bike Walk Commission to say something in such a letter like the commission agrees that this intersection is a good candidate and it would be a worthwhile effort for redesign to include traffic calming, to include more pedestrian accessibility, and such a project deserves funding. Maybe not so much commenting on like the specific details of it, but just the fact that like a project that would incorporate such features and such redesigns rather, is something that is worthwhile and deserving of funding.
That sounds great. That sounds very diplomatic to me and the right commentary at this stage of the project. So at this point, we just need to figure out who's going to write the letter. In the past, I've written all the letters. I would love to delegate that a little bit. I'm inclined to ask Nick to do it because Nick is new and I haven't asked him to do as many things as other people. And also, Nick, you just articulated that very well. So would you consider writing the letter?
Consider it.
Anybody else want to volunteer?
I'll review it for you, Nick.
All right, yeah, I can write something.
Cool. Greg, can you give us you said the deadline is the 21st, which is
Yeah.
11 days from now.
So if you could get it to me by the 19th, that would be excellent if you could do that.
Okay.
Because we don't want to be applying for it at 3:50 on Friday afternoon.
Yep. So the 21st is a Friday and the 19th is a Wednesday. Is that right?
Yep, correct.
Okay. Nick, is that a timeline you can make?
I think so.
Greg, in the past, TMP, or I don't know if TMP's done this, other people who have asked for letters of support have provided us a template. Is that something that you were planning on doing? I don't want to make extra work for you guys.
Yeah, no, we can do that.
Okay.
Yeah. We can do
Then-
that for you.
Please send that to Nick and CC me and Judd.
Okay.
Alrighty. Any last feedback? Or not feedback, anything else that needs to be discussed before we move on to the last agenda item on TMP? Great, let's do it. All
All
yours,
right.
Greg.
Real quick. So, Complete Streets Policy and Design Guide Project. So FHI Studios, who's the consultant that's, putting together the Complete Street Policy and Guidebook, are planning on attending the commission meeting next month, so on August 7th, so our next
Oh, cool.
commission. They would like to discuss with the commission on, the Complete Streets process and how they're putting together the guidebook. And right now, they're kind of working through the stakeholder meetings, with the various entities throughout City Hall right now, like DPW, Economic Development. And they want to, obviously, Tanner, you're on the SAC committee for that, the Steering Advisory Committee. So they want to come and talk with the Bike Walk Commission next month. And just kind of, go through the, process that they're doing right now with the stakeholder meetings and just get your take as, they kind of put all this together. And then they want to also discuss the demonstration project. And, we've kind of narrowed, that site for the demonstration project, which is going to look to take place sometime in September, or October, and kind of incorporate those temporary Complete Streets implementation practices, at one specific demonstration location in the city. And it looks like we're going to look at doing North Main Street at Ann Street in Sono. So we're going to look at some temporary ways to kind of incorporate some Complete Streets initiatives and best practices and kind of, improve that spot there, maybe put in some curb extensions. We would take
Ray,
away.
I'm not sure that anybody else knows what spot we're talking about.
Good idea. Let me bring that up. Good idea. So let me bring. We'll fly right over there. Once you see it, you'll say, oh yeah, I know that spot. So yes, we are looking right here where the right turn pocket is here, very low volume spot, the right turn lane right there. So we look to, at a high level, we haven't totally decided as of yet what we're doing, but, try to incorporate some more crosswalks, finish the leg over here, maybe put in some curb extensions on both sides. Maybe there is a transit stop for the transit district right here as well. Maybe create a bus pull-in area. So we're still kind of working on some of those layout elements, but we're just trying to incorporate some placemaking elements and kind of those a temporary Complete Street implementations in this area. And we obviously want to get the community involved, and we're definitely going to need the commission's help on getting outreach and assisting in that way as well. So we definitely want you all to be a part of it. So the consultant will come, next meeting. We'll kind of talk about the process and the schedule, when they're here next meeting. So so keep that on your calendar for August 7th for FHI to be here to kind of talk about that process.
Greg, would these, demonstration parts, pieces, crosswalks, is bump outs, is that all the idea to do that with paint only, or would it be done with concrete and?
No, so there wouldn't be any concrete. So they would mostly be done, something you could install and then take out, or something that would wash away, in the part, it's kind of a temporary measure.
Right.
And just to kind of incorporate those practices. And, it's usually, in FHI Studios, as, they did our master plan as well. And it's done a lot whenever, a demonstration project, kind of gets the community involved, and they've done a lot whenever they've done a Complete Street guidebook and policy for cities. So they've done it many times before.
Good.
So Judd, just for a little extra context, the goal of this demonstration project is to kind of provide a prototype for the public to see that represents the larger Complete Streets initiative.
Right.
Something that maybe the impression I'm getting is something that might push the envelope more than something that could be approved for permanent installation, as a way to demonstrate the longer term vision of this Complete Streets project. So obviously something permanent would be great, but I think doing it temporarily allows us to do something a little bit more bold. Greg, do you have the mock-up that FHI Studio put together that they presented in that meeting?
I do not. I don't have
Okay.
that. It's like I said, even Mike said during the meeting from FHI, he put that together pretty quickly. So
Sure.
we're still working on what we're actually going to be incorporating. There may be some minor modifications that need to be incorporated. So that will come shortly, as we kind of approach that timeline. But it's also for the public just to kind of see, like you could put drawings on paper, but until people actually see it in person, it's the time that kind of helps them, kind of puts things in a perspective and say, oh, this will work. This will look nice. Maybe we don't need that right turn lane. Well, they see it on paper, and they may not be supportive of it. So seeing it actually, in person in a temporary measure, could help sway some people as well, to some of these practices.
After the meeting that we had, what was that, 2 weeks ago? The most
Yeah.
recent steering committee meeting?
Yep.
I took a quick stab at putting together, I use this open source tool called StreetMix to put together just a concept of what Main Street could look like in this demo project. Do you mind if I take over screen sharing?
Oh, yeah. Let me
Right.
start. Yeah, sure.
And like, to be perfectly clear, this is just my idea. This is not even the idea that FHI came up with. But just to give you a flavor of like the different elements that we discussed incorporating into such a project. Is this? Oh, I gotta sign in, that's why. Hold up, I'm not gonna share my screen while I sign in. Okay. So, so this is a cross section. This is what the cross section looks like in front of Kazu, which is the sushi place that's just north of the mall, not the mall, the movie theater, excuse me. Where's the map? Oops. So Greg was just showing the same intersection right on satellite view. So this is a cross section right here. Once this loads, if it loads, just north of the theater. As you can see, there's currently one really wide lane right here that splits into a left turn lane and then a wide lane next to it. So this concept is looking north. We've currently got a 20-foot lane, a turn lane, a driving lane, and a parking lane. And the concept at this crossing right here looks like this. So it's the same curb to curb distance. There's a bike lane on each side. The concept that FHI proposed didn't have bike lanes, but they proposed an alternate in a different part of the city that did have bike lanes, because they were talking about how having a pop-up bike lane is really valuable in this demonstration scenario. I put a parklet in. They talked about parklets, and I think they included that in their vision for North Main right here. So this is a full 16 feet, including this planter buffer, a driving lane, a mixed traffic lane that fits a bus, and then another bike lane. So we've got space for pedestrians, we've got space for bikes, we've got space for transit and driving. And then similarly, this where the bus stop is, that one, did I get it? Yeah. Similarly, where the bus stop is, because it's a little bit wider curb to curb, I was able to fit in a 10-foot space for the bus stop here. So those are all the different elements that we proposed. I think that it would be quite feasible to create space for all these different modes, including bike lanes that are like physically separated from the car traffic. Obviously, it would only be for like a block, but the point of this is not necessarily to create to plug a gap in the existing network, but to show people what a proper protected bike lane would look like, even if it's only for a block. So I'm really excited about the demonstration project. I think it'll be a pivotal moment in our development here in Norwalk in terms of raising the public's vision, the vision of everybody involved in the project of like how we use our streets. So thanks to TMP for getting this ball rolling. Greg, a question for you about the whole process. When FHI Studio comes to our meeting next month, are they going to bring anything that they haven't already presented to the steering committee?
That I can't answer. I don't know what they're planning on bringing. They just wanted to come and, kind of have like a stakeholder meeting with you all, and kind
Okay.
of discuss the next steps forward with the demonstration project. Yeah, I don't know
Gotcha.
what they're planning on bringing with them.
Okay. Any questions for Greg or for me, since I was in that meeting as well? Alrighty. Greg, anything else from the TMP side? I think that's everything on the agenda.
That's it.
Alrighty. Anthony has his hand up. Anthony, what's up?
Hey, sorry, wanted to jump in last minute here. Because I think I've bothered you all about this before, but I kind of wanted to get it on the record in one of these meetings. But just like a request for traffic changes on Fairfield Ave. I wrote a letter to Common Council and TMP that I sent this morning. Last week, we had a traffic accident, which ended up killing a dog. And I just wanted to point out, and I've actually been pointing out for months how unsafe this street is. We have a lot of highway traffic coming off exit 14 and just like a basically nonstop semi trucks throughout the night and early into the morning. So I don't know what we can do here in this meeting. I kind of just wanted to get on the record if this is even the place to request changes like this.
Thanks, Anthony. Typically, we take public comment at the beginning of the meeting, but I think your comment's important. At the very least, what we can do is make sure that we dedicate some more time to this, maybe at the next meeting. Greg, do you know if anybody in TMP received that letter that Anthony wrote?
I'm not sure if anybody, I didn't receive it, so I'm sure somebody, I don't know who you sent it to, but I didn't receive it, but I can, we can put it on the list, if you will, because there's a lot of roads that we need to address, so.
Okay.
Sure, I can forward it. I think I only put Jim Travers on the email.
Okay. You can forward it to my email as well. So it's just G and then my last name at norwalkct.gov.
Okay, thanks.
Anthony, you said that Fairfield Ave?
Yeah, Fairfield Ave.
Greg, can you make sure that people in TMP read the letter and that you have some stuff to talk about on Fairfield for the next meeting?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I don't know how much. I mean, I'll do my best. I don't know how much.
Yeah.
more
I mean, just be prepared to answer questions about it.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And thanks, Anthony, for bringing that up. I'm sorry we couldn't devote more time to it in this meeting.
Yep,
But
no
we do
worries.
still have
Thanks.
several agenda items, but I think I look forward to spending more time on it next month. Okay, so we have 4 agenda items still. Christine put e-bikes on the agenda and she's not here. But I also put e-bikes on the agenda because of the cheaper rebate. So I'll introduce that really quick. And maybe we won't have much to discuss until Christine gets back because I think she had specific concerns. But for those of you who don't know, the state of Connecticut just started as of this month, so basically a week ago, offering a rebate program for electric bikes. The details are on the state website. The program is called Cheaper, CHEAPR. The program is initially just for electric cars, but as of this month, it's now eligible for electric bicycles as well, which is the new thing. Everybody in the state of Connecticut is eligible for a $500 rebate on an e-bike. If you make at or below 300% of the poverty line, which for a one-person household is like 42,000-ish, or if you live in an environmental justice community, which is a kind of a patchwork of census blocks that's defined by DEEP, the Department of Environmental Protection, you can qualify for a $1,500 voucher, which is pretty sizable. And there's this fixed set of bikes that are eligible. There's like 30 odd bikes on the list. All of them are below $3,000, so there's not expensive models on there, but definitely models that can replace a lot of car trips, which is the kind of the point of the grant program. Anthony, your hand's still up. Do you have a comment about Cheaper?
No, sorry.
Okay. I do know that you have looked into this list and you've looked into the grant program. Are there any details that you think are salient that I forgot?
Sorry, I don't have additional comment.
Okay. I wanted to put that on everybody's radar because it's a huge opportunity, $1,500. I think probably about half of Norwalk is eligible for that $1,500 voucher. It depends on what neighborhood you live in. But like, for example, the neighborhood I live in is eligible for the big one, the voucher plus, as they call it. Brian, go ahead.
I haven't seen the numbers, but I did see that it was extremely well subscribed the first day. So before we get too excited, I want to make sure there's still money left.
Oh, you think it may have run out?
Well, so on that note, if you pull up the website now, it's giving me a note for the incentive program. It's fully subscribed and currently no longer accepting new.
Oh, are you serious?
Applications. Yeah.
Yeah, it for the numbers, it was if they gave it was only good for about $1,500 bikes.
Yeah.
Oh
So
boy.
it was 80% subscribed the first day was what I'd heard.
Yeah, here we are. Here, I'll share the page really quick. Deep
Too
is
bad, it's
excited
amazing.
about the overwhelming response to this program. It will close on July 8th, which is 2 days ago. Yep. Okay. So scratch all that. It's not open anymore, but it was fun while it lasted.
Maybe that's what
Hopefully they bring it back.
concerned about.
What, Nick?
Maybe that's what Christine was concerned about.
Maybe. Anyway, hopefully it comes back soon and we can bring a lot more people onto bikes via e-bikes. So any other questions or comments about e-bikes? Alrighty, next thing is bike share.
My comment is they're awesome, but that's.
Oh, I mean, I agree. Yeah, I'll put it on the record that I think the e-bikes are the future of urban transportation. They're exactly what we need in terms of moving toward more micromobility and more sustainable transportation. And that's all I have to say on that, because the next item is bike share. For a little bit of context for people, I and Emily met with the mayor a couple of months ago to kind of just check in on the Bike Walk Commission, update him on what we do, get guidance on, is there anything that he wants us to be working on that we're not working on? And his first response in terms of what we should work on that we're not working on is to bring a bike share to Norwalk. When I first started attending Bike Walk Commission meetings, there was a deal in progress that the Bike Walk Commission had lined up between a third-party vendor, P3GM, I think they were called. They no longer exist. The deal fell apart because P3GM decided to pivot to electric scooters, and then I think they went out of business, maybe because of the pandemic, or maybe because they pivoted to scooters. But point is that the deal fell apart. It was far enough along that we even had, I think, 10 or 12 locations for bike racks picked out around central Norwalk. And it was exciting, and it then fell apart, and the mayor asked us to start working on this again. So I reached out to a couple connections that I have in the mobility tech space, and I had a meeting with the CEO of a smaller bike share company called Tandem Mobility, and learned a little bit about what they do. Let me bring up their website really quick. And I'll share that screen. Their biggest success story so far is that they run the bike share in Portland, Maine, which is somewhat close to home. They're also headquartered somewhat close to home. They're headquartered in Cambridge, Massachusetts. But if you scroll down here, you can see a map. A lot of stuff in the East and the Midwest, a couple in California. Most of the projects that they've done are quite small scale, but they have a handful of projects they've done in cities that are as big or bigger than Norwalk. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, for example. There's Portland, Maine. Wichita, Kansas, I think is the biggest city that they're in. And in Wichita, they are integrated. The fares, the payment system for the bike share is integrated with the transit district, which is why I mentioned that earlier, because I would love to see that in Norwalk as well whenever we do make this happen. Another thing that I liked about Tandem when I met with them is that they have experience with a variety of different funding models. Obviously, it costs money to run a bike share. In some places, they They're funded entirely by the city government. The city had just set aside some like operating budget to run the bike share. In some cities, they have done it by getting a corporate sponsor, like the one in the background here. I think this is in Huntsville, Alabama. They have Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield that sponsored it. In at least one case, they've been able to fund it through a federal grant. And then in one case, I think in Portland, in Maine, they actually like chipped in some of their own capital. Like they are essentially investing and betting on the system to be profitable. So they've done all 4 of these different models. I'm not sure which one is right for Norwalk. I think in the previous proposal, the P3GM proposal, it was going to be ad funded. They were going to include a lot of ad space at the RECs. And that's something they've done as well. I don't think they've had any systems that have been purely ad funded, but I could be wrong about that. I only had like a 30-minute meeting. Anyway, so that's what I learned. I'm definitely going to be meeting with other vendors as I find them. I did get a response from B-Cycle, which is maybe the second biggest after Lyft. Lyft is like the rideshare company, owns all the biggest bike shares in the country, including City Bike in New York City. B-Cycle is kind of the number 2 player. They do like Indianapolis and Salt Lake City and Boulder, Colorado. So I've got an email from them I need to respond to, and I'll set up a meeting with them. But at this point, what I think we really need is people to think about what sort of elements you would want in a bike share in Norwalk. I don't know if we have time to discuss, like to brainstorm them in detail in this meeting. But the other thing we need, and this is a question for you, Greg, is buy-in from TMP and an understanding of how TMP wants to proceed, what your priorities are, and the things that you need to know first in order to kind of start the process of bringing a bike share to Norwalk. So I'll turn it to Greg first.
So, I mean, obviously we're supportive of biking, and, we want to continue to, to build upon it. And, one of the things that we're really dedicated to in TMP is just creating, more networks of dedicated bike facilities right now.
Totally.
Putting in, as many dedicated bike facilities as possible, especially when, as part of our paving program with DPW, how can we kind of reallocate the road to incorporate dedicated bike facilities? We're putting in, miles and miles work this year as well, connectivity project, bike lanes on Highland, West Avenue, we're looking at the feasibility of, West Rocks and Main Street. So, that's a lot of our attention right now is that's where we're at right now. And obviously, per the mayor, he asked you guys to look into, how we can get bike share in here. So, I think just getting as much information as possible and just seeing what would work best for the city. But for our department right now, we're just trying to get as many dedicated facilities as we can, and incorporate them as many projects as possible.
Great. Yeah, that's a key part of it, and I'm glad you guys are focused on it. Brian, you got your hand up. Go ahead, Brian.
That's from before. I forgot to put it back down.
Oh, okay.
I'm all good.
Any other questions or feedback, or anybody interested in kind of being part of this project? Right now, the project is basically just me.
I can help. I'm definitely interested.
Cool. Alrighty, then I'll make sure that I loop you in. If other people are interested, feel free to let me know now or later, and I can loop you in. For example, like if I have this intro meeting with B-Cycle and you want to sit in on that, let me know and I'd be happy to help you sit on that. Greg, at this point in the process, Emily, do you mind muting? I think you've got background noise.
Sorry.
Greg, at this point in the process, do you want anybody from TMP? Do you think it makes sense for people from TMP to sit in on these intro meetings with different vendors?
Not right now. We're kind of really busy right now.
Sure.
Yeah, so
totally fine.
I'm out to allocate right now to that.
Yeah, understandable. But if at any point you do want to be involved, you're welcome to be involved, and I want to keep you in the loop.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. moving on to bicycle friendly communities application. This is another thing I put on the agenda. Ben Handpeter and I have kind of been the core working group for filling out the bike friendly communities application, and I'm pleased to report that we have made some concrete progress. For quick context, this is an award that the League of American Bicyclists gives out to hundreds of municipalities all around the country. They also give it out to businesses and to universities that apply, but the application is very lengthy. It's about 80 pages. And so there's a lot of content in there. There are 5 sections to the application. The first one, and by far the biggest one, is engineering. It's questions about your built environment, the policies that impact your built environment, your bike network, the safety of your streets, etc. There's 4 other categories: education, encouragement, evaluation and planning, and equity and accessibility. I think that probably most of the credit that we're going to get on this application will be in the engineering section, based on having read through the application. And I'm pleased to report that the engineering section, that Ben and I have made a first pass, and we have answered all the questions in the engineering section of the application to the best of our ability. And I want to show the document that we're using to kind of track this, to give you an idea. So the application is very valuable, not only in terms of like getting an award and being recognized for the work that we're doing, but also because it kind of outlines a blueprint for what the ideal bike friendly community looks like. It has all sorts of different aspects, elements that different communities in the United States have. Obviously, it would take a long time to get Norwalk to the point where we have every single one of these, but just reading through them and understanding what they are and what they look like in other cities has been very educational for me. And Ben, I imagine, would say the same thing. Ben, you're here, right? Yeah. Do you want to give your quick take on the process and how it's gone so far?
I don't know if I have too much more to add, but it has been very helpful to go through this, and I learned a lot of different things just by reading it. There's policies and engineering, features and other things I didn't even know existed. It's extremely comprehensive. Just part of why it took so long.
Yeah, honestly. So this is what the application looks like. You have to scroll like 15 pages in just to get to the engineering section. So for example, we've got questions about mixed-use zoning and transit-oriented development. And so this question is B4, and if you go over to this this tracker, the kind of worksheet that we're using, we've got a row for the question. We have recorded the things that we already have in Norwalk. We have recorded the things that are kind of in progress. For example, the proposed zoning regulations include some form-based code features that we can get partial credit for, which is what the upcoming column is all about. And then based on what we learned about how other cities are doing some of these things they're asking about, we've identified some things that we put on what we're calling the wish list. Now, this is, we still want to kind of prioritize this wish list and figure out which ones of these are easier or harder, figure out what should we maybe start with working on if we're going to work on some of these. I've highlighted in green the things that could be incorporated into the Complete Streets project, the Complete Streets ordinance. There's at least 4 different things that we could get credit for if they make it into the Complete Streets policy and design guide. So that's just to give you an idea of how we've been working on it. And this last column is action items. But this is just the engineering section. So at this point, I've identified 3 concrete things, right? 3 is, I thought there was a third one. I've got at least 2 concrete things that we need TMP to do. When we've talked about this before in Bike Walk Commission meetings, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but the response that I remember getting from TMP was, you guys need us to start the process, to do basically our portion of it, and then throw over the fence the things that we need TMP to do. So that, I think that at least for this biggest section, for the engineering section, that we're at that point.
Okay. Yeah, just get as much done as possible, and then we can handle any of the data JS related items that need to go in.
Great, and that's exactly what these 2 items are. The first one is to create or update the official bike map. I think we do have an official bike map on the city's GIS site, but I think it's out of date.
Yeah, we've been updating. We've been doing a better job of tracking all of our bike facilities, bike racks, and all that other good stuff. So we have a lot of those maps updated.
Great. Then I guess I'll take another look at it. I looked at it a little while ago. I'll take a second look. But the other thing that I'm almost sure that you haven't done is complete the bicycle network worksheet, which requires some GIS analysis to compute. Like they want to know all the lane miles in Norwalk and how many of them have different kinds of bike infrastructure. And that's
Gotcha.
something that, you know, somebody on the commission would have to learn GIS in order to do.
We can handle that portion.
Great. Who, at this point, who should I work with on that, and what sort of timeline do you think somebody in TMP could do that work?
So just send everything to Kyle and myself, and then we'll be able to, you know, coordinate. And, you know, as far as timeline, I mean, you know, we'll get it done. You know, we'll just have to, you know, we'll divvy up the work as needed, and we'll get it done.
Great. The next deadline, the deadline that I think is still realistic to hit, is the last day of August. I guess August has 31 days, doesn't it? It's August 30th.
Second to last day of August.
So we have over a month and a half. I think that's reasonable, especially given the momentum that Ben and I have now with having completed all of this.
Yeah, just get it to us as soon as you can, Tanner.
Yeah,
So
well,
divvy it up and start the process.
these 2 action items that I have for you, I'll send you tonight.
Okay.
And
Tanner,
yes, Judd, go ahead.
your traffic calming, I believe there are plans for West Washington Street with a raised crosswalk. And at one time, there was a raised intersection plan. I don't know where it is today. Greg, maybe you know something about it at the intersection.
Judd, I don't think we have time to get into all the details
Okay, I
of
just
these
thought
different
you might
questions.
want to know about it. So I'm just adding that. You can add it to your list. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Judd, we'll go through the list as well, and if there's anything that
Oh,
needs,
okay.
we'll go through it as well for future projects.
For the record, the list that I've made here is more for our purposes. When we fill out the application, we just have to indicate which of these features exist in your town. Right, so the raised crosswalk, for example, we have that already at a few different places, and I think we've even mentioned them.
Okay.
We have a tabled intersection right by the aquarium. Obviously, we have more coming up, like the concept for Seaview Avenue includes one at First and Seaview, which is great. And I think we'll get partial credit for the fact that that project is in flight. But I think that, you know, I don't think we'll have to notate every single one of these on the application, but it's good for us to know about them, just to kind of have our finger on the pulse of, you know, what what we can brag about in our city. I think that's everything I need to know from Greg. Greg, like I said, I'll send you those 2 action items. And then Ben and I, and if there's anybody else in the meeting that wants to join this working group, actually, I should give Anthony credit. Anthony attended at least one of our working group meetings and helped with filling this thing out. So thanks, Anthony. And we'll knock out the rest of those categories. Like I said, they should be much shorter, and throw it over the fence to you guys. Any other questions?
Paul
Great.
also gets some credit for helping.
Yeah, sorry, I thought I already gave you a shout out. Ben did a massive amount of work for this. Actually, there's one
No,
more thing
I said Paul.
Oh, Paul. That's right.
Paul.
That's right. Paul is not the Paul that's here. Paul Chenard. Paul Chenard, if you want to help out, we'd love your help. But Paul Fox, who's not here tonight, also helped out with this. I do want to call attention to one thing that Ben did that was a ton of work. Ben has been keeping our bike rack map up to date, which you can find if you go to bikenorwalk.org. There's a link to it. For the sake of time, I won't pull it up here, but Ben grabbed all that data, pulled it into a spreadsheet, and then evaluated every single bike rack in the city against these ABPB standards, which is American Bike Parking. I don't know. It's some governing body that publishes like best practices and standards for bike racks. And we found that 34% of the bike racks in the city conform to their best practices, which is a decent chunk, but it also shows that we have a long ways to go. But it was a large amount of work that Ben did, and kudos to Ben for doing it. So with that said, any other questions about the application or the work that we did? Alrighty. Last element is bike racks. I guess I kind of started on that already. One of the items on the application is, where is this? It asks about programs for providing bike racks. Yeah, bicycle parking policies. If we look at the question, it says, what policies and programs are in place to ensure that high quality bike parking is available throughout the community? And some of these are included in the proposed zoning regulations, like bike parking ordinance for new developments. But I don't think that any of these we currently have. And what we've talked about in previous Bike Walk Commission meetings, a program whereby a business could fill out a form that's on the TMP website and request a bike rack on public property in front of their business, for example, on Washington Street or on Wall Street. So that the item on the agenda is to follow up about that. But before I kick it over to Greg, Judd, your hand's been up for a little while.
Finish what you're talking about, and then
Oh, okay.
there's just one more thing that's not on the agenda I want to.
Oh, I see. I see. So Greg, I know that TMP, you guys have lots of great stuff in the pipeline that's keeping you busy. But has there been any development on this idea to, provide some sort of sign up for businesses to request bike racks?
We haven't really moved on that lately, so that's something that we need to kind of move on. But we have installed some some bike racks, some decorative bike racks ourselves at various locations this year.
Yeah.
We have been able to get those in this year, including the calf at Calf Pasture Beach, the sailboat at in Rowayton, which mimics very closely to the Rowayton logo as well. So, and also the whistle in Whistleville, right on Lexington Avenue.
Yep. I don't know, Ben, have you gotten the Rowayton one?
I've not. I don't know if I'm
Yeah,
familiar with where that is.
Is it in Picnic Park?
It's in Picnic Park. Yep, it's actually
Nice.
right near the old fence one, but it's a sailboat. It looks just like the Rowayton logo.
Well, we will get that on the map, but I do want to point
Oh.
out that we did find the Whistleville
That'll
rack.
boost the stats.
It will boost the stats. Whistle rack is on there. The calf at Calf Pasture Beach is on there. We don't have a picture of it. If somebody has a picture of the calf rack taken in the daylight, I think somebody sent me one that was taken at night, and I wanted to find one that was taken in the daylight. So if you have one, send it to me.
I'll text you one right now. I took a picture of my bike in front of it 2 days ago.
Oh, sweet, perfect. And then we have the East Norwalk station that was installed recently, and it looks pretty fun. We got a good picture of it. So thanks TMP for putting in artistic bike racks. One last comment on this. Part of the reason this was on my radar is because I was recently at the Art Space, which is right up here just north of Matthews Park. And I was talking to them about transportation solutions because they have a really limited parking lot. And I was talking to them about alternative transportation, asking about a bike rack. And they, being the Art Space, are very interested in having an artistic bike rack on their property, either on their property as their private property or on public property in front of the Art Space. Either way, doing something artistic. So Greg, I don't know if you have a timeline for a future artistic bike rack order, but if TMP would consider doing an artistic bike rack in front of the Art Space, there's definitely appetite for that, and I'd be happy to talk to you about it further offline.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Alrighty, Judd, what you got?
Swag, the 20.
Oh, yes.
Yes, the 2022 order, the remaining items, I've been assured will be in by the end of this week, delivered to TMP. For fiscal year 2023, we did not purchase anything because we did not get pricing together in time.
No, we got t-shirts, right, Emily?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were able to squeeze in a t-shirt order in.
Great. Okay. I have pricing for 108 millimeter 5-foot cable combination lock bike locks and 100 USB rechargeable 100 lumen headlights. I have a price from Smart Cycle in Norwalk. Their total price was $3,000. I got a second price from Cycle Dynamics in Westport. These are both, locally owned. They're not chain, mom and pop. Cycle Dynamics comes in at $2,600. Do we want to move forward with these purchases in 2024 fiscal year? And we've lost Tanner. There he is.
Sorry, other people in my house are leaving for dinner and I'm gonna try and catch them.
Okay, Nicholas and Emily, I guess if someone could, I guess what would be the process here?
We've already moved to spend this money. I don't think we need to move it again. Like, I think we already proved it, didn't we?
Well, we did for fiscal year 23. So
Okay, fair enough.
that carries over.
Then I'll entertain a motion to spend this money in the new fiscal year.
Second that.
Well, you've made, I can't make the motion, but it sounds like you've
Okay.
made the motion. Anybody want to second Emily's motion?
Nicholas?
I'll second the motion.
Great. All in favor? That's unanimous. Excellent. Thank you, Judd, for getting a head start on spending our budget this
Okay.
year, since that is a common struggle of ours. I will mention that I had a great quote put together for lights from this company that makes their own headlights and gives them out in Chicago. And they do it for real cheap, and it fell apart because they refused to give us a W-2 form, which seemed really dumb, but that's the city's policies. They need a W-2.
W9.
Yeah, W-2 is for employment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's W9.
W-9. Anyway, that's part of why it took longer than we thought, because we got to the very end with this vendor and then it didn't work. But
Yeah,
thank you,
so
Judd, for putting that
just-
together. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Greg.
just get me the 2 quotes, the official quotes from them on their letterhead, and then just their W9 form as well. Thank you.
Great. Okay. At this point, we need to approve the meeting minutes from the last meeting. Unless there's anything urgent that people want to bring up, but I think that we should probably adjourn. Great. Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Motion to approve.
Thanks. Judd, you're muted, but it would seem that you are motioning the same thing.
Go ahead, Emily.
She did.
Yep.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Judd. All in favor? Great. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks for working on biking and walking. We'll see you next month on the 7th of August, right, Greg?
Yes, August 7th.
All righty. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Greg.
Have a good
Thanks,
night.
everybody.